Kia ora, my name is Craig Murray, and this is episode number 1 of the New Zealand Small Business and Entrepreneur Festival Podcast. Thank you so much for all of you for tuning in. Special thank you to DHL for partnering with us on this podcast, which is going to make us be able to push the podcast and the content out further and further. Episode number 1, and we have got an absolute superstar coming on, Cassie Roma, and we're going to dive super deep and niche into brand and storytelling and why you need to be really starting to think about what your story is for your brand and the difference between a brand and a logo. So without further ado, I would like to introduce and bring in Cassie Roma.
Hey.
Kia ora, Cassie.
Yoda,
how
are you?
I'm
good.
well.
I'm good. I'm at home in Auckland, and it's sunny and it's springtime and the kowhai are in bloom and we can hear the tui out in the kauri tree. So, lockdown or not, life is good.
We've got a big kowhai tree in our house as well. And it's amazing because tuis go upside down and suck the nectar out of them, and they're amazing. We can talk about tuis and native birds a lot if we want to, but I suppose...
We sure can.
But,
brand tui.
Brand tui, yeah. But the one thing I have read is that the optimal time for a podcast is between 22 minutes and 32 minutes. So I'm going to try and keep it in between there because I do ramble a lot. And you can tell me, Craig, settle down. We need to keep this to 22 minutes. Yeah. So to start with, Cassie, I was wondering if you could take us through a bit of your origin story, your how you got to New Zealand, and how you've become sort of an expert in the brand and storytelling, and where your professional career has taken you.
Sure, 22 minutes.
22 minutes. Go.
So my journey, as you can tell from this accent coming out of my mouth, didn't start in Aotearoa, New Zealand. It started in the United States. I was born in Southern California, and I kind of split my childhood between the outskirts of San Diego and then a town of 220 people in Missouri. So I had this city mouse, country mouse kind of life where we got to know what big cities and small towns were. And really, I found young a love for humans and storytelling. So that'll set us up for where I move in the professional realm. I played lots of sports growing up. My dad was a professional baseball player in the early 70s. So it was just kind of part of who we were, teamwork and understanding how games work and playing by the rules and just having a big community. After high school and sports and everything, I went to college at UC Santa Barbara, where I graduated with a diploma in Spanish language and literature and history with a little bit of communications on the side, all of which I haven't really used in life other than when I travel. And then I met a Kentucky tour guide named Tex when I was 21 in London, who happened to be a Kiwi, and we got married. And that's how I ended up here in New Zealand. It's always the way. Not marrying the Kentucky tour guide, but finding somebody and coming back to kind of broaden the gene pool, right, in New Zealand. Yeah. From a work perspective, I came here quite young, so I've been here almost 2 decades, and I've just turned 40 this year. So when I got here, I was still into that kind of that beauty of youthful dreaming, and I've always been a photographer and a videographer and a writer. At my core, I am a very deep introvert, and I love nothing more than like the melody of language and rhythm and trying to figure out how you and I are similar and where our stories intersect. But after I had a baby and needed to pay the bills and the mortgage, it was like, shit, now what? And marketing tended to kind of fit this professional and personal love, my passions. So I started to follow marketing because digital marketing and social media were just starting at that time. And I found a way to earn money and do things that I loved, which was be creative. And then at the same time, it was a completely new, like, extraterrestrial world, right? We hadn't had social media. I had my first boss, and the first job I had with social media in the title that I wrote myself would tell me every day when I went to work, you need to earn every penny of this because social media will never last. And we don't know that it matters to marketing and brand. To which I say, ha ha, because
Yeah. Where are they now?
But it was one of those things where traditional brand, traditional marketing, and traditional advertising, it was just fun because I've always looked at everything that we put out into the world of all the brands that I've worked with, big or small. Everything you put out into the world is a touch point with somebody. And if you can make somebody feel something, then you are going to have a fan or a customer for life. And I love finding out what the secret sauce is for brands and especially for small businesses, because once a small business moves into kind of their mana and who they are and that brand that they want to put into the world, that's when you start to see them really grow and to do their thing. And I love nothing more than seeing a small business really succeed.
Awesome. So next question I'll lead into. So how would you define a brand? So what's in the way that you would define it? How would you look at a brand? So this for me, this is what a brand means for me.
So brand is an essence. It's a feeling in the world. So every human that's in the world is a brand. So I look at brands and businesses the same way that I look at people. A brand isn't your logo. A brand isn't your color palette. A brand isn't your tagline. A brand is not your social media channel. Just like your shoes are not you. The shirt you're wearing is not you. The books you read are not you. They're all pieces of who you are. So a brand is this ever evolving personality and essence that's out into the world. It's a vehicle for selling things.
So do you have a sort of like a favorite brand that you're like, well, those guys are absolutely nailing it, and that's really the essence of what a brand should be, or that's the Mount Everest of brands, and this is what everyone should try and work their way towards, whether that's a lot of people will say Nike or something like that, but there's other brands that have different sorts of purpose behind them as well now that are, do you have anything in particular, or a brand in particular, or a group of brands that you think are doing a really great job at the moment?
Yeah, I do. You said the magic word there, kind of like a little ding, ding, ding went off in my brain. You said purpose. There's so much quant and qual in the world right now that says brands with purpose are the brands and the businesses that grow and succeed and will continue to do so, especially with millennial workforce and Gen Z coming up behind, and Gen Alpha as well. My favorite brand, and this is not a secret, is a brand called Wildfang, F-A-N-G, not Wild Thing, Wildfang. And it is a clothing brand out of Portland, Oregon. And it's funny you mentioned Nike, because one of the founders and the director is a woman called Emma McElroy. And she's somebody who I'm very proud to be able to call my friend now. Emma created Wildfang with the purpose of helping women and girls and non-binary people, and men as well to an extent, find clothing that fit their bodies, that made them feel empowered, and that made them feel something like there was something out there for them. Rock tees, button-up shirts, the zip-up workwear that I wear all the time. It's all Wildfang. But what I love about the brand isn't just the products. The products are fantastic, and I feel powerful when I wear them. It's the story that sits behind it. It is the humanity. They are so politically charged in that they want to stand on the right side of history. They want to do the right thing by LGBTQ people, by our Black and Indigenous family. They want to do so right with equity and equality, that wearing the clothes is just that little step up to being like, I'm not only wearing something that makes me feel good, but I'm wearing something by a business that's run by somebody who wants to make others feel good as well. And that's why I love Wildfang so much.
Wow. Okay. I just jotted that down. And so when we edit this, I'll put that in the notes somewhere, wherever notes go. And I'll make sure that I link that to there so everyone can check that out. I suppose the next question I have is really focused more on New Zealand small business. And I was wondering if you, or maybe not so much New Zealand, but any small business globally, do you see any common mistakes that businesses with a brand or without a brand or haven't thought about the brand are doing, that you think there's some easy tactics that they could like just dial or refine that could make them set themselves apart from their competitors?
Yeah, totally. I think the first thing to answer that question is I like to start right at the beginning. If you think you've got a viable product, if you think you've got a great idea, if you think you've got something you want to sell and put out into the world, the first thing you need to do is get some feedback, get some, analysis from folks, ask questions, say, do you think that this would be a good idea? Go and ask questions, get some data, get some insights, and see what those customer insights or potential customer insights could look like, because then you will have a very good idea of what your brand should be, of what the essence that you want to put in the world should be. I work a lot with individuals as well as small businesses. And when we talk about personal brand or small businesses that are starting up, a lot of folks go to the internet, which is great, and they find templates. And they're like, okay, the template for a small business says, step one, find a logo, choose a color, figure out what the words are you want to use. What are you going to sell? I always ask people to step back a little bit and go, what is your tone? Who would you be if you showed up at a barbecue? Do you want to be the fun-loving friend? Do you want to be the knowledgeable colleague? Do you want to be the inspirational, sustainability guru? Who do you want to be? And once you start to understand the way you want to show up in the world, then you can build the brand, the business, and the products around that. But it all starts right back at the front with that kind of analysis of what consumers say they would or wouldn't like. Because I might think it's a great idea to go out and start selling hats to women with blonde curly hair. But if I'm the only woman with blonde curly hair that wants to wear a hat like this, then you're kind of destined not to succeed in the beginning. I think the second thing that is so, so important, and that I see a lot of folks struggle with, and especially in New Zealand, and I think this is one of the things that as an American, I've had to learn and then unlearn, and that is kind of the weight of the tall poppy. A lot of folks are so afraid to put anything out into the ether because they're afraid it will be seen as, braggadocious or beady chesty. But a lot of the time when it comes to brand, it's really going, I've done my homework, I'm passionate about it, I know it's going to be valuable to other people, so I'm going to put it out there. I'm going to try. And I think the third thing is test things, test and learn. Nothing is perfect. Done is better than perfect. A business or a brand leader's idea of perfect might not be the same as me. I would rather have an actual conversation with somebody who's trying to learn, and to a brand that's mucking up every once in a while, and watching them learn and grow, than I would somebody who just doesn't put anything out and waits and waits and waits. To be a successful business these days, you have to be able to create community and curate conversations around your business and your products. And to do that, you have to be very bold with stepping out into a really scary place, right? Which is social media and digital media, and having an opinion.
So I suppose you started talking a little bit about brand archetype, and I've done a little bit of research about brand archetype, and I'm a sage magician. I don't know if that align if you're into I think, is there 12 different archetypes that you can align to?
Some of them there's 10, sometimes there's 14. Yeah.
Have you identified yourself as what archetype you would be? Personally,
well, I have actually
as a person.
Well, I have won the Sage Award, so I'll have to go with that one.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. My next one is so you went through 1, 2, 3, 4 steps, was it? So could you just summarize those 4 steps again for the listeners who are listening all the way through, and then want to get those 4 steps about tactics that can help their brand move forward?
Yeah, I think the tactics are fair. Yeah, the tactics are fairly simple. Start at the beginning. So go out and do some analysis. Figure out what people actually want to be put out into the world, right? So you're doing this question and answer with potential customers. Then you want to move into your essence, how you show up in the world, the things that make your brand your brand. Don't template everything, because you don't want everything to look the same. And then I think from there is just do it. It's so Nike, right?
Do it.
But it is.
It is.
It takes courage, and it's scary to put something that you love and you have so much passion for out into the world, but just do it. Test and learn, test and learn, test and learn.
Cool. Test and learn, test and learn, test and learn. Cool. So my next question is about storytelling. So how can a brand tell a story? What does that mean? So let's say a brand is I'm gonna pick something really obscure. No, not obscure. An electrician who's got two staff members, and they're in Rotorua, where I'm based, and there's there's 95 other electricians that are based here as well. How do you think an electrician could stand out from the crowd? And so that, let's say they're new to the market, and there's some established brands that are already out there, and they want to sort of try and take a little bit of that market share. What do you think that would be a good tactic for them to start with?
Well, I think regardless of channel or where they want to start, again, if we go back to what we just talked about, how long is a piece of string? An electrician would be fun. That would be a fun one. First and foremost, it depends on that electrician. What is their goal? I'm going to take my bias hat off, and I'm going to say this electrician is a woman. And I'm going to say that she is probably in her mid-20s. She's just got her qualification. She's starting new. So she's already got something that's going to stand out apart from the crowd, and that is that she's a woman in a man's world. So the stories that I can picture her talking about would be things like maybe debunking. I would be debunking some myths, some things that the boys can do that the girls can't, kind of thing. Like chat on site. There are so many different ways you could wrap this up. If we go it's an electrician, we're not going to say man or woman, it's somebody with 2 employees. The best way to do that, again, it comes down to the humanity behind the business. So again, that's why I said how long is a piece of string, because if it's me and I'm an electrician, or if it's my friend Jake down the road who's an electrician, Jake's going to have a different take on what he wants from his business than I want from mine, because I might go, I want to grow my business, and I want to grow my business to be 10 people in the next year. Jake might be happy with 2 people for the rest of his life, as long as he can pay the bills and do good work. To differentiate themselves, any business would be around figuring out what the tale is you want to tell, understanding your content buckets. Usually what I do when I work with businesses or even humans as personal brands is we'll go, what are our 3 buckets for storytelling? And those main buckets are, so for myself, we'll take my own personal brand. I like to talk about women in business and entrepreneurship. I like to talk about creativity, and I like to talk about leadership. And under those 3 buckets, then we can fill them with things like projects, with the products that I sell, with the workshops that I work through, with the creative iterations of, TV shows and advertisements and things like that. They can all sit in and around my personal brand, because I've really got a view of 3 different big storytelling buckets or pillars, and then I can have smaller stories under that. So I think storytelling for a brand, and other people don't always agree with me on this, storytelling shows up in every single touch point. So if you are going to put out a paid ad on Facebook or Instagram, and it's literally a retargeted ad, we saw that you put something in that you wanted to buy, and it's sitting there just waiting for you to click and purchase it, and you get this retargeted ad. Instead of just going, buy the thing now, you have an ability to tell a story and go, hey, we see that there's something waiting for you. All you have to do is press that little, you can add tonality, you can add personality, but every single thing a brand puts out into the world, it's not just content, it's a story. Because no matter what you do, as simple as it can literally be a photo with a button that says click. How you show up in that photo visually, how your font looks, and the button that says click, that's a story. It adds to your story. It can be a single word in a chapter, or it can be an entire chapter,
Okay, cool. So we're getting towards our magic number. We're at 19 minutes and 54 seconds. So we've got a few more questions, Cassie, to ask. So one of them is, do you think a brand story influences a consumer's motivation to purchase from you?
Completely.
Or is it big, and is it becoming more relevant now than what you think it was maybe 18 months ago or 2 years ago, or has it always been the same?
It's always been the same. It's always been the same. And I say that hand over heart. The idea of story is, and applying it to brands and business is the oldest thing in the world. I mean, stories are how we survive. Stories are how, when we were back in like cave people days, you would say, hey, Craig, don't go out there. There's a saber-toothed tiger. Stay here till it's safe, right? That's how we learn to survive. It's how we pass down knowledge and wisdom. Same goes for brands. I actually wrote a book during the last lockdown. It's called Fuck You Marketing, P.S. I Love You. And it goes into the history of brands. And every brand on the planet that you know, I guarantee you, that you know and love and that resonates with you, the reason that you know and love and it resonates with you is because part of its story interweaves with your own personal story and makes you feel something. And it's always been that way, whether it was in, pamphlets back in the old days, whether it was in TV, radio, social media, out of home. Story has always been relevant. I think now we're just kind of wrapping some love around the idea of story as being powerful. I know when I started in marketing almost 2 decades ago, we used to be called the coloring in department all the time. And it was kind of said like with a wink and a nudge and, here's your little budget and go off and color in the lines. And now everybody's like, shit, if we don't have a story, we don't have anything. And I believe that.
Cool. Yeah, I do as well, actually, 100%. I suppose another question I've got is around the difference between brand and marketing. What would be the main sort of points that you see that this marketing and brand is two, in my opinion anyway, I think they're very, very different. Yourself?
Yeah, totally. I think marketing is the tactics. It's the planning. It's the spreadsheets. It's the paid, earned, and owned lovely juggle that businesses, especially as they grow, or even, especially with small businesses, trying to figure out how you capitalize on all of those things. So marketing for me is tactical, which is why I always call myself a very hesitant and accidental marketer, because there is nothing I loathe more than an agency handing me a spreadsheet and just going, there's your marketing plan, and not thinking about the brand essence that's going to fit in the slots that they've put in that spreadsheet. It's as if they're treated separately. So I think they are separate things, the essence and the tactics, but I don't think the essence can exist without the tactics, and the tactics definitely will never thrive without an essence. So I think there's this great need for both of them to exist.
So if we're going a little bit into the tactics of you've got your brand and you've got your story, and now the electrician, let's say, is now going to go, okay, now I need to go and start singing from the rooftops about, no pun intended actually, to try and reach a new audience. Obviously there's a number of different social media platforms and digital platforms and different ways to be able to reach the audience, whether the electrician could be Google search or Pinterest, or it could be Facebook, Instagram, maybe even TikTok. TikTok could potentially be an option for brand building. But after you get your brand and you've got your story, would you say for a small business to try all the platforms, or just hone down into one or two and get really good at those ones before they move into multiple?
I think the main thing is, and this is where we always start when I'm working with folks, is you start with the end user first, not the business. And I always talk about this too when we're telling stories. So many brands will start out, we the brand think that, and it's like, no. Everything you do, flip that narrative, and it has to start with the person who's watching the the TikTok, with the person who's reading the print ad. You must always think of the customer first and think about them. Same goes with tactics and channels. I mean, the beautiful thing about social media and digital media is if this electrician in Rotorua knows who they want to be targeting, it might be that the target audience are very active only on Facebook and in the local newspaper. There are your channels. Double down. If you are confident and competent with other channels and understand the ways in which you want to use those, TikTok might be for fun, or TikTok might also be for, here's some handy tips around the house. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can test all of that. I think a lot of folks think that because the channels exist, they have to be there. The older I get and the more I'm in the game, the less I think it is important to do everything everywhere. When all of the voice apps started coming out, Clubhouse and Twitter Spaces, and we've got Fireside now, and all of these different voice apps, it was like, how much time in the day do we have to listen to random strangers waffle? Kind of like what I'm doing right now, but you know what I mean? I can't be in all of those.
22 minutes.
But so my best advice is think about your target audience first, think about what you're comfortable with, and go there. Then use analytics, learn about how to use analytics, and really, really go through the numbers and understand who's coming to you, what engagement rates are, if you're doing videos, what drop-off rates look like. Be really smart with how you understand engagement.
Awesome. So lastly, I might hand it over to you, Cassie, and see whether or not you've got a top tip for a small business or an entrepreneur or someone who's got a potential idea and it's been sitting in the closet for a long, long time, and now's the time. They've been negatively impacted by COVID, work-wise that is, and they were like, I'm going to bring this idea out of the closet, and I'm going to tell the world what would be your step-by-step guideline to start.
The step-by-step guideline to start is start. If you've got the idea, and I did this when I was writing my book, right? I had the idea, I planned everything out, I had every chapter ready to go. I had the main points of the chapter, the sub points, the focals, everything that I wanted to do, and then I kept getting stuck on the starting. And sometimes when it comes to that, what you need to do is understand what your strengths are. And my strengths at the time was writing blog posts, putting LinkedIn posts up, creating content for other people, anything except the chapters. And a friend of mine said, why don't you treat the chapters like a blog post? And it just changed my mindset, and I got the book done in 6 weeks. Same thing goes for a business and an idea. The best thing you can do is when you have that idea, write it down. But always, always, always in every point of your journey, remember the customer, the human on the other side of the idea, the value proposition that you're putting out into the world. Once you understand how you want to make other people feel and the value proposition of your product, then it's just so smart and worthwhile to get. You can Google these. You can get free business planning documents. Go through the template, even when it's hard and even when you have to chew through it. Go through the stuff that you're not comfortable with or you feel like it's a weakness, and ask for help. There's always people who can help you, because a business just isn't a brand. You have to understand your numbers. You have to understand your audience. You have to understand your analytics. And then again, you do have to understand your differentiation and how to change and pivot when times happen like the times we're living in now. So best idea to start is to start one foot in front of the other and be gentle on yourself, because these things are not fast moving beasts for the most part.
I actually think that's the perfect way to end this. The best way to start is to start, and incremental steps forward are going to help you build momentum and start your idea. And I know you like one of my favorite podcasts is Gary Vaynerchuk, and his idea is like, ideas are shit. Execution is the game.
Mm-hmm. That's right. I know a lot of ideas people, but you can have a full note on your phone full of ideas. Just start, just do it, get it out there.
Awesome. Let's end on that, Cassie. We're going to put a link to your book in the show notes as well. So please, if anyone wants some expert marketing tips from Cassie, you'll be able to go and check it out on the link below. I'm assuming you can get it on all places where books are sold.
Most of them, yeah.
Most of them. Awesome. Hey, Cassie, thank you so much for your time. We really do appreciate it. Episode 1 for the Small Business and Entrepreneur Festival podcast done and dusted. And yeah, thank you so much. Woohoo!
Thank you for having me. Yeah.
Have a great afternoon.
You too.